with America's Mayor Live. And and you should now be seeing your relative, our relative, on the screen, newly discovered. That gentleman there is known as Homo naledi. Homo naledi was discovered just a few years ago, and he takes the possible human development back 240 to 350,000 years. Now, there's something very unusual about Mr. Naledi, Homo naledi. Uh, his remains were found in Johannesburg, South Africa. They were found in a cave, as were the remains of many, many other of his group. And they buried the dead. They also had wall symbols in the cave that they were found in, called Rising Star. So these people practiced, as I said, burying the dead. They practiced some form of writing. Now, here's the catch that makes this very, very unusual and very important. They had a brain 1/3 our size and 1/3 of the size of the primates that were thought to have emerged from, oh gosh, 250,000 years later. So this would take the development of the human brain back much further than we thought. And if their observations are correct, the size of the actual size of the brain may not be as critical as we thought. The content of it might be more important than the size of it. So this discovery and this Homo naledi was not only had a 1/3 smaller brain, but he was a smaller creature. He was about 100 pounds, and he was about 5 feet. And he carried a brain about the size of an orange, just a little bigger than a chimpanzee. Now, chimpanzees are quite bright, actually, and we haven't really studied what they can accomplish and what they can do. But he was found in a cave called Rising Star, located near modern day Johannesburg, and he was basically, I think it was about 2015 when the first discovery was made, and altogether 1,500 bones have been found in the cave system, and that which was a large number. And they also found evidence of the use of fire, and including a horse to cook, and charred bones. I guess people who had been burned don't know if burning was part of the death ritual or not. And let me read you the quote here. The idea of dealing with death in a ritualized fashion is actually one of the last precious things attached to being human, Berger said. That's the gentleman involved. That the remoteness of Rising Star supports the idea that Homo naledi was doing something similar. They didn't want their dead in an easy to get to space. We don't either. In other words, they buried their dead, and which is a higher form of activity than we thought was happening back that far away. Now, on the same day that we had a push way back into the past, Amazon, or Apple rather, released its vision of the future, which is the Vision Pro. The Vision Pro is the first Apple product that you look through and not at. You put it on and you wear it, and it looks something like this. Let me see if you can see what it looks like. It was revealed yesterday. Can Can you get a decent look at it, Ted?
You can. There we is. There it is.
That's now you put that on, and Disney actually showed up for the Apple launch, and they said that you can put that on and watch Disney movies. Well, I don't know what Ron DeSantis would say about that if he would let you watch Disney movies. They may be banned in Florida. But in any event, I also would wonder walking around with that thing on, watching movies might not be the smartest thing in the world. I mean, you may start bumping into cars, people. We'll have to ask Mr. Naledi. We'll have to ask Mr. Naledi whether, see, here, let's look at Mr. Naledi again.
And
We're
Mayor,
going to have to ask Mr. Naledi, would he want to wear the Vision Pro? I don't think so. I think Mr. Naledi, who might have had a small brain but could do a lot with it, might realize that putting that thing on your head, looking at movies while you're walking, is kind of stupid.
well, Mayor, would Mr. Naledi pay $3,500 for that Vision Pro?
I don't think so. No, I don't. I think Mr. Naledi might think it's a ripoff. I don't know. What do you think?
I would have to agree with you.
I
$3,500.
don't think he would have
is a ripoff.
emerged from the conditions that existed back then. I mean, to exist back then without all the stuff that just think about it. He didn't even have a cell phone. Mr. Naledi, he had to exist without a cell phone. Must have been really nice, actually. You actually could have conversations with people in person. They could talk to each other. They could even oh my goodness, they could touch each other. Oh God, people can't touch each other anymore. You can't. I mean, it's virtual touching. You go like this, right? So if I go like this, I move the. I think I can move the camera if I do that. Well, as long as I'm showing things, can I show you? Can I show you one of my? Maybe I showed this one already. I think I did. Well, I'll show it again. What the heck? Giving Congress our FBI files on Joe Biden's finances might interfere with our investigation that we're not conducting. I kind of like that one. It is really strange, isn't it? What the heck's going on? And also, they're trying. I really find it very, very interesting because they're trying to discredit this new FBI form that lays out now I'm just telling you what I was told. I'm not telling you that I know this personally or not. I'm neither confirming nor denying that I know this personally myself. But according to the revelations from the Congress, apparently confirmed by the FBI, I'm not sure about that, but I think so. This form from an FBI agent comes from a highly reliable source who has given them information in the past that's proven to be true during the Obama administration. And according to the source, Biden received money in return for policy consideration and policy changes. And it came from a foreigner, not China. And I also think I read, so I'm not adding anything from my own store of knowledge, that it came from a Ukrainian. Now, there are several different versions of how this ended up in the hands of the FBI. One version is that I gave it to them. Another version is that this informant was the first to give it to them. A third version is that I gave it to them earlier in January of 2020. And then in mid-2020, independently, the confidential source, reliable confidential source, gave them the same or essentially the same information. And what they're trying to do is basically say it's coming from me and therefore it's unreliable. But haven't they tried that one before and failed? This is essentially what they did with the really big one, the hard drive. So we produced a hard drive, Bob Costello and I, nobody else. And of course, we were attacked as Russian disinformation by the group of sniveling, lying, creepy intelligence officials who populated our government during the Bush and Obama years, when I'm not sure that either president was ever given a correct piece of intelligence. Intelligence that they basically provided intelligence that led to massive deaths and was so terribly wrong that you'd have to wonder, were they stupid or corrupt or both? But in any event, they were corrupt when they signed this document saying that the computer, the hard drive, the Biden disclosures had all the earmarks of Russian disinformation. Now, they don't identify a single earmark, which is quite unprofessional. I mean, if you're going to charge this, you generally have 2 or 3 examples you can give as to why you think something. I mean, why would they think it's Russian disinformation? Because it has earmarks of Russian disinformation. Well, if it has earmarks of Russian disinformation, why didn't the letter, by way of illustration, illustrate 1, 2, or 3 earmarks of Russian disinformation? It illustrates none. They had precisely 36 hours to consider all this. From what we know of the telephone calls that we have, it was pushed very hard by Anthony Blinken that they sign this. And a number said they signed it without looking at anything. They just did it because they were asked to do it. As far as I know, none of them bothered to look at the hard drive, bothered to check any records as to its validity. Certainly, they didn't contact me or any of the people that I had validating it. It was validated 5 different, let's see now, 4 different ways by 4 different people. There was nothing questionable about it at all, and nothing Russian about it. That was just completely made up by these people who were some of the highest ranking people in our intelligence services, which goes to show that they are dishonorable, unpatriotic liars. And of course, they get away with it. They get away with it. The press hasn't asked them to explain, hasn't bothered to question them as to how or why they signed something so false. It gives you an idea of how corrupt our press is. I mean, this was a enormously relevant piece of information to the presidential election, probably the most relevant piece of information that's ever emerged in a presidential election. And it was covered up based on a complete lie, which was subscribed to by high-ranking former government officials, mostly Democrats, but some Republicans. And it was also given a certain amount of credibility by the Republican Secretary of the Treasury, a few other people too. I can't remember who. Of course, the press picked it up immediately. All the stupid talking heads picked it up immediately. And you remember how it worked then. It works that way now too. The press does Democratic talking points. They get it in the morning, and then they all say the same thing on ABC, CBS, NBC, CNBC, MSNBC, CNN, and any other, quid pro quo, quid pro quo, quid pro quo. It was a quid pro. No, it wasn't a quid pro quo. It wasn't a quid pro quo. The allegation of the Biden bribe in the Ukraine has been debunked. It's been debunked. It's been debunked. It's been debunked. They all said the same thing. It's been debunked. It's been debunked. It's been debunked. I asked if they could please show me a debunking memo. I never got one. If they could, the prosecutor was corrupt. He was corrupt. He was corrupt. He was corrupt. I said, could you point me to something in the file that suggests what his corruption was. They never did that either. And on this one, when they said earmarks of Russian disinformation, I immediately jumped at that and said, give me at least one earmark. Can you come up with one, you bunch of miserable liars? And of course, they didn't, nor did the press require them to do that, because they were more than content to fix a presidential election, which is what they did. That election was conducted under fraudulent circumstances, deliberately fraudulent circumstances. And they don't seem to care or mind. Not only that, they then went on with the completely false, which they knew was false, Russian collusion story. And that one they found out very early on. That one was false and purchased by Hillary for 1.1 million. Yet they stayed with it, even though it was purchased. They even wrote articles about it and had the gall to accept Pulitzer Prizes, which they've never returned, nor has the Pulitzer Committee taken it from them. You would think if you mistakenly wrote a false article, you'd have the decency to return the award you got for it.
You'd fail in class if you did something like that. You'd get an F. Oh, at least
Well,
where I went to
you would
school.
get an F.
You'd fail.
Yeah, and I would think the 51 professors would be thrown out for cheating the way Biden was thrown out of law school for cheating.
100%.
But worked his way back by plagiarizing a law review article. I mean, Biden has been a miserable lying creep from his time in school. When I was introduced to him, his law school classmate told me he was the dumbest guy in the law school class who cheated his way through. Sounds right to me, right? Sounds like the Joe we know. It's the guy we know in the White House, right? Well, picked up 31 million from China. Don't you find that completely ridiculous that that there's nobody in our government, Republican or Democrat, that got the guts to really hound him with that? I mean, every day we should be demanding that it be explained. Every day. Republicans as a group should stand up in the House and Senate and say, we're not going to talk to you. We're not going to deal with you until you explain why your family got that amount of money from China. Why did it go through 14 corporations or more? What services were performed? And why have you done extraordinarily beneficial things for China that would be unthinkable that any other American president would do, like giving up the Bagram Air Base 400 miles from China, or not pursuing their role in COVID? Doesn't it sound like somebody that's compromised?
It certainly does, Mayor. And as more and more comes out, it appears Representative James Comer, chairman of the Oversight Committee, is onto something. I know some people, myself included, expressed some early frustrations with the speed and maybe the direction of the committee's work, Mayor. But we're seeing as the weeks go by and Mr. Comer comes out with more and more, he really seems to be putting the time in.
He's roping him in, I think.
He really seems to be putting it. Yes, sir.
I think he's roping him in to bury himself. And this is quite a memo that they're talking about.
Mayor, why is it always the same Republicans that are always questioning Hunter Biden, and we never really see any new ones jumping on board? Like, are they scared? Like, what's the deal?
Yeah, I think they're scared.
You think they're scared?
They're frightened of the press, because the minute you do it, the press comes after you. The minute you do it, I mean, look at they've written terrible things about Comer. I mean, I don't read them and pay attention to them, but I've kind of skimmed them, and I mean, the guy seems like a perfectly normal, nice guy with a great background, and I don't even know what they write about him. I know they write really nasty things about them, but I'm not even going to repeat what they are. But to them, he's a maniac of some kind.
We're not going to repeat it here. But look, I mean, it's why they've done what they've done to President Trump
and me.
It's why they go after you, because they're sending a signal to the rest of the country and to other great patriots and people who may want to speak up. Look what we can do to a former president. Look what we can do to America's mayor, or at least attempt to do. Of course, they're failing. You continue to fight each and every day, sun up to sundown. But they're sending a message to everyone else, right? With these attacks on you and now on Comer. They're trying to send a message to keep people from speaking the truth
they're
and going
success-
bucking the powers that
to a
be.
very large extent. They're successful.
Very successful.
They have held this thing down. When you think that he's going to be buried by a disclosure that would bury any other politician, he somehow survives because they ignore it. They lie about it. They're working on how they're going to lie about this one right now. It's really going to be impossible ultimately, because it's like getting slapped around no matter which way you turn. The hard drive is filled with crimes. It's filled with crimes. One after another, after another, after another. If you'd go back to my early podcast, you'd see that I outlined them all and outlined them in great detail. And some of them I had even before the hard drive. I began unearthing this information about Biden in 2017. In November of 2017, after they had been turned away by the U.S. Attorney's Office, who had no interest in Hillary Clinton's corruption or in Biden's corruption. All they wanted to do, I think, was to try to frame Trump. And they had no case against Trump. And they had, in fact, and turned down probably the biggest scandal in American history. I would think ultimately their names will go down in prosecutorial circles and history as among the most, if not corrupt, inept prosecutors that ever lived. Had they taken in the information brought to them by Bud Cummings in 2017 about Biden being bribed to fix the case for a crooked oligarch in Ukraine named Zlochevsky, Mykola Zlochevsky. Zlochevsky hired, in essence, Biden to fix the case if the Ukrainian government tried to take his business away from him. And he paid him the bribe by employing his ne'er-do-well son, his drug addict son, who had just been kicked out of the military for being a drug addict, and his partner for really basically useless jobs in which he paid both of them $83,000 a month, which would amount to about $2 million a year. There also is evidence that the FBI never followed up on that Joe and others received money through offshore bank accounts. The woman who had that information was available to the FBI, was willing to give up that information in return for being in the witness protection program, and was left high and dry by the Bureau, really at risk of her life. Very similar to what they did with Bobulinski when they interviewed him. He gave them very incriminating information, and they never called him back. I've had many situations where either I have given them information that they didn't follow up on that was powerful evidence of Biden's involvement in crimes at the highest level of government, or they found ways to discredit the person. The FBI is involved in a very, very deep, very disgusting and troubling, massive conspiracy to cover up crimes for Joe Biden. Why? I don't know. We'll have to find out when we unravel it all. Exactly how it all happened, that they become basically secret police for the Democrat Party. I don't know. We'll have to find out exactly when that happened. Did Clinton originally corrupt them? Could be, because Comey and the FBI fixed the Clinton case. She should have been prosecuted. I mean, they're going to go ahead with a prosecution of Trump about one document that was not properly handled, according to them. She destroyed 33,000 emails. She busted up how do you prosecute somebody for one document? And the other one virtually wiped out an entire, who knows how many files, and who knows what's in that. All during that time, she was taking money on the side to feed the Clinton Foundation. I mean, I do believe that the Clintons are the ones who originally corrupted the highest levels of the Democrat Party, because they went from trailer trash, low-level grifters to multi-million dollar international criminals. And they brought the Democrat leadership with them, and Biden went along with them. And I think you're going to find, when this all comes out, as it will now, that there's more than Biden and Clinton involved, that it involves a good deal of the leadership of the party of slavery. It'd be a good opportunity for the Democrats to change their name, which they should have done many, many years ago. If they want to go around changing names, they better start with their own, because no institution has had more to do with slavery than the party called the Democrat Party.
Mayor, it's funny you say that. I actually went on a date a couple weeks ago, and the girl was a total leftist, and
That must have been fun.
she said Republicans were the most racist in the country, and I asked her, "Oh, that's funny. Who freed the slaves and who started the
Does she know?
KKK?" Of course. So her answer was, "Oh, the parties were different back then." Have you ever heard such nonsense in your life?
No, they actually weren't. I mean, Lincoln was a conservative. Lincoln believed in frugal government. Lincoln believed in small government, limited government. Lincoln would fit very nicely into from a Republican, a modern day Republican, whereas the Democrats, even back then, had the idea of a centralized government and ruling from the top down rather than from the bottom up. And of course, the Republican Party emerged to fight slavery. It withdrew from the Whig Party because the Whig Party compromised on the issue of slavery. I mean, the terrible thing about the 1619 Project and all these communist attempts to destroy American history, which is what communists do in order to take over a country, is that they distort what is a very mixed picture of slavery. Slavery is a horrible thing. I was taught about slavery. I was never taught that slavery was a good thing or that America was right to have slavery. I was taught that it was horrible. It was the worst thing we ever did. It was immoral. But I was also taught, because it's true, that from the very beginning, there was opposition to slavery in America. There were abolitionists among the settlers. The Puritans of Massachusetts didn't have slaves, and they would have found that completely inconsistent with their very, very strict religious beliefs. And all throughout our history, even before we had the Civil War, we had a very, very strong abolitionist movement. And even those who had slaves would write things that were inconsistent with slavery, realizing that it had to end at some point. The reluctance was when and how. Of course, it should have been done without any excuse. These may have been rationalizations, but a lot of them, like, for example, Jefferson, who owned slaves and didn't free them, probably his writings had more to do with abolition than almost anything else in our original documents. I mean, he wrote, you'd almost think of them as poison pills in our documents. It's hard to square slavery with his writings that all men are created equal. He knew that. He knew that he was creating a tension that would ultimately lead at the right time to abolition. But that story isn't told.
Do you think they take that into account, Mayor? A lot of these modern day leftists, they don't think they take into account the time period, right in the context, which is very important. And it's a conversation they're not even willing to have. Right?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, the modern day leftist view on race is so sick, probably because race has become has become the substitute for class. Those that are classical Marxists and understand that know what they're doing. Those who are brainwashed don't understand what's being done to them because they're not intelligent enough to read Das Kapital or to read Engels or to read Saul Alinsky or Gramsci or any of the people who explain how, critical race theory, which we all hear about, CRT, is critical theory. Critical theory comes out of Marx, and it's the tension between the classes. So they change it into the tension between the races. And it really was an Italian communist named Gramsci who recognized that you're never going to turn America based on class because we have it distributed too well. We have too strong a middle class and too strong an ability to move among classes.
Is that still true today, Mayor?
Yeah, sure. I mean, how many people are there that are multi-millionaires that were poor? A lot.
Because some people, and you actually hear this on all sides of the spectrum, so to speak. Whether it's on the right, you'll hear the American dream is dead, but we can revive it.
Is.
Or on the left, you'll hear the American dream today, it's not what it should. You hear it on all sides. You do.
Even in poor economies, there are certain industries that do very well, and people become like during the pandemic. And I'm not talking about now corrupt people. I'm talking about people who are in a position to be able to keep their stores open. Were the one the one store in town that could stay open. I mean, they made a lot of money legitimately.
Yeah. So what you're saying is there's always opportunity in a country like America. There's opportunity for those that are willing to work and seek it out.
Yes, I mean
And
there's
maybe some luck's
opportunity.
involved, but
There's opportunity. There is always a certain amount of, we call it luck, I guess. But sometimes things go right, sometimes things go wrong. You can do all the right things, and sometimes things don't work out, and you can do the wrong things, and things do. But by and large, I tell people, I used to tell young people when we had so much welfare in this city, we had 1.1 million people on welfare. We had children growing up in families that never saw anybody working. It really worried me that we were losing the work ethic. And if we lose the work ethic, we lose a lot of what's very unusual and unique about America. And I used to tell young people, if I could give you one thing, even beyond high school education or college education or whatever, if I could give you the work ethic, you're going to do okay. You might get rich. You might go right to the very top, but you'll be okay. You'll always be able to take care of yourself and your family. If you like to work, you have the discipline to work, you figure out what it is that satisfies you. I think this whole notion that we re-examine that everybody has to go to college, damn good idea, particularly since colleges don't teach anything anymore. I'm not sure what a degree from Harvard is worth at this point. What do you learn about? You learn about how to mutilate children, or I don't know what they teach there, or what a terrible country this is. And then how stupid is that? We have a terrible illegal immigration crisis because everybody wants to come here. And then we teach people in our major academic institutions, this is a horrible country, an evil country, systemically racist. What the hell all the people want to come here for?
Well, Mayor, they teach something. I don't know if you ever heard of Fabianism. You ever heard of Fabianism?
Yes, of course. Yeah, that was
yes. What a lot of these Ivy Leaguers that go to these schools, they're getting taught socialism, and they don't even know it because Fabianism is actually the slow teaching of communism.
Yes.
So a lot of these people that go to school, those Ivy League schools, are coming out as extreme leftists because I don't even know if the professors know that they're teaching them Fabianism because the curriculum has been there for so long.
I would say the professors know what they're doing. I'd say that a large number of the professors are committed communists. They know exactly what they're doing. And whether they look, Obama basically said it to us, right? He wanted to fundamentally change our government. What does that mean? Fundamentally change our government means you want to make it into something different than it is now. And different than it is now is a government in which the government dominates, the government takes over, the government makes decisions for you because Obama is smarter than you are. And therefore he can figure out what you should do. Think of the whole fight that's going on with parents. It's really a battle. You come right down to it. The battle is when push comes to shove, who gets to make the final decision on the education of the kid? The parent or the state? Democrats believe the state does. Republicans believe the parent does. Karl Marx was sure the state does. Right? And the Western Judeo-Christian tradition was sure that the parent does. So that whole debate, when you heard Terry McAuliffe say that during the race that he lost, when he made that stupid statement about how parents really shouldn't have anything to say. I mean, what do they know? They're not educated or about the education of their kids. He's really reflecting the influence of communism on the Democrat Party for the last 100 years. Now, I'm not sure McAuliffe knows it. I'm not sure McAuliffe's an intellectual or how smart he is if he reads books. But he certainly was reflecting a core communist belief that the state should educate your child. I might add a core Nazi belief, who, by the way, were the Socialist Party of Germany. And many of the same concepts apply, particularly get your kid right away and brainwash him. Get him away from God, get him away from parents, and get him away from patriotism. Because all those things will interfere with his accepting the role that you have in mind for him, which is to be a serf, to make you rich. Because the real corruption of communism is it really exists to make a few people very rich and very powerful, namely the members of the party. And you look at Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter is a classic Marxist organization. Patrice Kalura's very, very happy to tell you she was a very well-trained Marxist. It's not accidental that the minute big money came in, she stole it and started living like a queen because she thinks she's entitled to as a communist leader. I mean, the richest people in communist countries are the communists. 100 million people in China are communist. They're either multi-billionaires, multi-millionaires, or doing well. The other 1.3 billion are, some of them are middle class now, but a lot of them are in third world poverty. That's a communist country. And it sounds nice because everybody gets the same. Everybody doesn't get the same. So I thought we would also talk a little bit about the most extraordinary thing that Adams has now done. And that is wanting to put illegal immigrants in private homes. What the last time they tried that, I think it was George III, who wanted to put all the troops in our houses, and we had a revolution over it. I mean, what is this guy out of his mind? Does he know who these people are? I mean, look, nobody is trying to demonize them or anything else. And I'm sure, unfortunately, some of them are probably good people. But I'm also sure that some of them are really bad people. Otherwise, the cartels wouldn't have cleared their coming in. Does he realize that there's no vetting by the U.S. at the border? We just let them come in. The vetting does go on the other side of the border, where there are many checkpoints that are run by the 5 major cartels or the 26 minor cartels. They all get a little piece, and they use this invasion of America to get their work done, which is to get fentanyl in, multi-billions of dollars for them, for China, and for the Mexican cartels. human trafficking. They work with ISIS to get terrorists in. They work on their own to get their own people in. So that now, if you look at a map, I wish I had it with me, you can see that the Mexican cartels are now a very sophisticated, well-organized criminal group with representatives in almost every city in the country, including small ones like Massachusetts. A lot of Massachusetts is run out of Lowell and Lawrence, Massachusetts, which are relatively small towns.
Yeah, Mayor. They actually interviewed a few migrants outside the public schools a couple weeks ago when they had that whole big thing, and a lot of them weren't even Hispanic. They were Turkish. They were from Afghanistan. They were from countries where
China.
They were from
Who do you think
countries where
China's sending in here?
yeah, it's very
I mean,
crazy.
look, it's a complex picture, but because it's a complex picture, you can't be stupid. The complex picture is that some of the people are running away, in most cases from poverty. The one thing that's absolutely true is the vast majority of them are not refugees and are not entitled to asylum. Very few of them are people who are running away from political persecution. We know that. They'll even tell you that. They're the ones that are legitimate are running away because of poverty or something akin to that. That's not a grounds for asylum. If that were think about that. If that were a grounds for coming into the US, the whole world could come in and we would have to feed and clothe the whole world. And we'd not have a country, particularly America, because we're not an ethnic country. We're not a country of one religion. We're not a country of one ethnic background. We're a country really defined best by Abraham Lincoln of some core, very important shared beliefs. Now, if a lot of people come in so fast and they don't have these beliefs, and there's too many of them and it happens too fast to assimilate them, you lose your country. You lose your country. You lose America. It becomes just another socialist country, part of the big one world society, which happens to be the aim of Obama and Soros, for sure, who's written about this, and Klaus Schwab from the World Economic Forum, which is big on a one world government. What does that mean, Ted?
Oh,
I don't know. He was going. He's making a little.
break.
We have time for a break. Okay.
Look, you're on a roll, Mayor, and I never want to
No. We can
in the middle of
a
roll.
So we'll take a little break for Kirk.
We'll take a quick break for our friend Kirk.
I would ask you all to pay attention to this and to make this telephone call. I'm not telling you got to buy it or it's good for you or whatever. What I'm telling you is the conversation with Kirk or his people will be very valuable. So then you can make an informed decision, because this economy isn't improving until we get Trump back or a Republican president, and then it will take a while. If I look back on the revisions that Reagan had to make, or even that Trump had to make, it took a year, maybe more, about a year before you really started to feel it. Trump got a kind of a bounce out of the regulatory cutting that he did immediately, because it turned out that even when he was running back in 2016, business people were saying, unlike when Reagan was president, where taxes was the major issue for them. Yeah, taxes were really bad, but overregulation. Well, we're back to overregulation. I mean, this government now, regulates you from cradle to grave and wants to regulate even more. And it stifles economic opportunity big time. So let's take a break, and when we come back, we'll take a couple of your calls. All right. Faith and family, freedom and finance are four things that we would do anything to protect. I trust the team at Kirk Elliott, PhD Private Advisors, with providing the advice and sound strategies to take advantage of the inflationary pressures, the high interest rates, and the international challenges we face today. The Kirk Elliott team, with over 29 years of experience, shares our values and believes in people over profit. They can help you protect your finances from the big government policies that are out of our control. So what's in our control? The decision to act or not to act is within our control. I encourage you to act. Call Kirk Elliott, PhD, Private Advisors today. Start working with a team that will help you protect your retirement assets with gold and silver while sharing your desire to protect your faith, family, and freedom. Call them today, 720-605-3900. That's 720-605-3900, and tell them Rudy sent you. Or simply fill out a request for a free consultation at kirkelliottphd.com/Rudy. Look at what they did to Robert Kennedy Jr. and to Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, it's amazing. These young guys are running for president, and they cut them off before they even got started. I mean, what are they thinking? What kind of communist, Nazi, fascist thinking is that? I'll get the article out because I've forgotten exactly why they cut off my friend Vivek. I think they cut off Robert Kennedy Jr. because of the vaccine. I mean, he apparently has a lot of reservations about the vaccine, which are all reasonable. I mean, the vaccine was not tested ever. It was an emergency exception to our usual 2 to 3 year testing period for a vaccine. So the possibility that it could have problems was a lot more prominent than would have been the case had it gone through the 2 or 3 years of testing. And then there's a lot of dispute as to how many problems emerged. Some would say none or few. Others point to statistics that show a lot of problems. So it's a reasonable debate, and it's one that we should have so that we can find out the truth. That's all Kennedy is doing. And what the hell are they cutting him off for?
All right, Mayor, let's take our first call, and let's go to Thomas in Columbia, Missouri.
Hello, Mayor.
Hello, Thomas. How are you?
Fine. I do see a problem with the spending that Biden has been doing, but that goes ahead and works against him as well.
You see a problem with the spending that he's doing, meaning that he's spending us into inflation and possibly recession. Yeah. Well, he is.
Not a recession, but depression.
Okay. All right. I mean, what he's doing is he's taxing us without our really being able to vote on it. I mean, whatever you have is 15 to 20% less valuable than the day that Trump left office.
Let's go. We have another call here. Let's go to Bobby in Texas.
Hey, Rudy.
Hello, Bobby. How are you?
Doing great in Texas. It's a nice sunny afternoon. It's real pretty down here.
Where? Texas, big place.
I'm right by Galveston. I was born in Galveston at BOI, born on the island, and I'm a private investigator down here and been doing a lot of cases. And I really have a missing girl I'm looking for. I kind of posted it on there, on your little site down there. But I think she's on Hunter's laptop. I think there's going to be several missing girls that have been abducted on Hunter's laptop. I found one. I've been going through the pictures that they've been putting online, and one really looks like her, but I can't tell because I don't have access to the laptop.
How old was the girl in the picture? As it
Okay,
existed then.
Yeah, she was taken when she was 21 out of Canada, and she was abducted off of a bridge, and she just passed her nursing school, and she just disappeared off the face of the earth. I've been really shaking the trees, and what they're saying is that she's being trafficked. She was taken by not the Banditos, but the Hells Angels, and they took her and just kind of worked her into whatever to make her whatever they want, and she's being trafficked.
And this
to
girl
USA.
and this girl that you saw, they have this new website in which they've posted 10,000 photos from Hunter Biden. Now, I can tell you that would include photos that I don't have. The hard drive that I have has approximately 2,000 photos, and they're disgusting, they're scandalous, they're sick, perverted.
Well, this girl would be forced into it. A lot of these girls are taken. They're young girls are either lured by
it's hard to know.
marriage or whatever.
A lot of the girls are prostitutes, and it's hard to know, exactly. And then there's an awful lot of pictures of underage girls too, in very, very questionable outfits, and then straight out child porn, which we reported to the Delaware police, and they did nothing about it, nor did the FBI. They just don't give a damn about children either. There's actually an admission in a text of Hunter to his father that he's a danger to the minor children who lived in his house. Well, of course he would be a danger if you saw these pictures, because it looks like he spends his entire day smoking crack and talking to prostitutes on the phone and displaying his private parts, walking around nude with these minor children in the house. And apparently a psychiatrist objected to this, and he says that his sister-in-law was lying about it, but then he says, but I am a danger to the children. And Joe Biden's deep caring for his grandchildren was so great that he did nothing about it. Very, very similar to the grandchild that he refuses to acknowledge. This is a very bad man sitting in the White House. Very deep problems.
Okay, sorry about that.
Yes, what do we have now?
Well, Mayor, thanks. We're going to bring up the chat here, a very busy chat.
My 14-year-old daughter was taken by the non-custodial. I can't read the rest of that. Have you seen that? By the non-custodial parent in Texas. The police are friends with him, so they refuse to help me. I mean, that's heartbreaking. My heart breaks hearing about how much evil happens. My heart breaks too, and sometimes I wake up in the morning. I don't recognize that I'm in America anymore. I was having that conversation with on the John Castamatidis show this afternoon at between 5 and 6, and we were really it was John and a group of other people, all people who have been very, very experienced, a judge and Rita Cosby and head of Republican Party, and we were really focused on the almost insanity of Mayor Adams wanting to put these illegal immigrants into people's homes with no vetting of them. He doesn't know who he's putting. The guy could be from an insane asylum. We don't know.
And he wants to pay you taxpayer money.
He wants to pay you more money.
Right. Our money.
More than 2 times what you get for a foster child. That's correct.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, Mayor, what about, and that brings me to the question, what about the Jordan Neelys of the world? What about Americans that are supposedly on the street and need our help? Why isn't Eric Adams and these Democrats, why aren't they bending over backwards and asking citizens to take in the Jordan Neelys of the world, right? Why are they now asking us to take in foreigners, but they here are ignoring the very group of people they also claim to represent. Meanwhile, so it's all
Well, before
hard to
the
figure out.
75,000 to 80,000 illegal migrants came in, there were about 30 to 40,000 indigenous homeless people who we did nothing for. And they're Americans, and some of them tragically are veterans. But we don't do anything for them. In fact, we've put veterans out of homes so that the illegal immigrants, illegal migrants could go into the homes. And they're illegal because they come here illegally. They are claiming asylum, but we know statistically that 9 out of 10 of them are lying because their cases ultimately are denied. But they end up waiting 5 or 6 years. And by the time you get to that point, they disappear.
It's backwards, and it's just, again, I think highlights the emptiness of their rhetoric, right? When they talk about
why are these people bringing in these illegals when they can't take care of them? Are they just crazy, or is this an evil agenda? It's an evil agenda. It's an evil agenda to destroy America. No better way to destroy a country than to make sure it has no borders. And particularly true of America when you consider that America is made up of a shared ideology. It's our commitment to the principles of the Declaration of Independence and Constitution that makes us Americans. We're not French, we're not German, we're not Spanish, we're not Russian, we're not an ethnic group. We're not a particular religion like some countries are an overwhelming particular religion. So what are we? We're a group of people that came together because we believe in freedom. We believe in democracy. We believe in the rule of law. The minute that breaks apart, we're no longer a country. And that's what they're trying to do to us. They're trying to have us break apart. So we become a socialist country, communist country, and we get rid of our nationhood and become part of one world. What I'm telling you is not my imagination. If you read what Soros has written, he hates American nationalism. And when you listen to Democrats, it sure sounds like they hate America. I mean, Biden constantly talks about how we're systemically racist, which means that most of us are racist, which means we're evil. He thinks his fellow citizens are evil. The strange thing is I don't know racists. The one person I can think of in modern society that is clearly a racist is Joe Biden.
That's right, Mayor.
I mean, he is a clear, absolute racist. The things that he said about he doesn't want his kids to go to school in the jungle. If you're a black man, you're not a black man if you don't vote for him. What the hell does that mean?
If you don't vote for Joe Biden, you ain't black.
For not being racist, these people seem to be so obsessed
That's all
with
they think about.
race. That's all that's all they think about. They've created entire departments, entire jobs, entire focus of universities, right, on diversity, equity, inclusion.
Race is a category of dependency. I mean, they don't really. They try as much as they can to make people who are black and live in black neighborhoods dependent on them, as opposed to, basically taking advantage of. I mean, listen to Tim Scott yesterday. What a delightful exception Tim Scott is to their bullshit. Excuse the word. But Tim Scott went on The View, and boy, did he make. But it's not. I mean, I know Tim, and I respect him.
Yeah.
This is not taking anything away from him, but he made them look like fools. Really, it's not that hard.
That's right, Mayor. It's like,
I want to congratulate him, but I mean, I didn't expect anything less.
I mean, but a lot of people don't have the guts to do what Tim did.
Before Mayor continues, can you imagine Mayor Rudy Giuliani on the set of The View? Just want to throw that out there.
Well, number one, he wouldn't be invited.
Oh, they would invite me. I'm the devil.
Honestly, deep down, they just
Listen,
know they wouldn't be able to
I'm the
compete.
exception, right? You're the exception. Maybe even Miss Whoopi Goldberg is the exception. But we are not the rule. And so when it comes to racial inequality, it persists in 5 core aspects of life in the U.S. economics, education, healthcare, criminal justice, and housing. At nearly every turn, these achievements were fought, threatened, and erased, most often by white violence. You have indicated that you don't believe in systemic racism. What is your definition of systemic racism?
Let me answer the question that you've answered.
Or does it even exist in your mind?
Yeah, let me answer the question this way. One of the things I think about, and one of the reasons why I'm on the show, is because of the comments that were made, frankly, on this show, that the only way for a young African-American kid to be successful in this country is to be the exception and not the rule. That is a dangerous, offensive, disgusting message to send to our young people today, that the only way to succeed is by being the exception. I will tell you that if my life is the exception, I can't imagine.
But it is.
But it's not, actually. It's been
114 years.
Yeah, so the fact of the matter is we've had an African-American president, African-American vice president. We've had 2 African-Americans to be secretaries of the state. In my home city, the police chief is an African-American who's now running for mayor. The head of the highway patrol for South Carolina is an African-American.
Still
in 1975, there was about 15% employment in the African-American community. For the first time in the history of the country, it's under 5%.
40% homelessness.
And 50%
of African-Americans
of the folks in our community
get 13% of the
You had the
population.
chance to ask the question. I know that I've watched you on the show that you like people to be deferential and respectful, so I'm going to do the
That
same
is
thing.
true.
No, Democrats hate a black Republican.
So now you see the difference of opinion within the black community, and which do you think is a healthier prospect for the growth of that community? A constant repetition that all these terrible things are being done, and that blacks are dependent, and that they need the government to get them out of horrible white suppression? Or is the message of Tim Scott, the more effective one, which is that may have been part of our past and to some degree? It isn't part of our present, except if you want to make it that way. And if you want to continue to enslave blacks in a certain way. And that if you embrace what's available in the United States, and blacks have the same opportunity to succeed that whites do. And when you look at affirmative action, you might have situations in which they have better opportunities to succeed than whites do. And I mean, I know that's 2 different views of the country, but both of them are worth considering and discussing without these horrible personal attacks that are made against all black conservatives who are, look what they did to Clarence Thomas and continue to do to Clarence Thomas. Clarence Thomas is being attacked because he got gifts from a friend. You know, Joe Biden is never listed once who pays for those homes he goes and stays in, nor did Obama. What about their gifts? And in the case of Justice Clarence Thomas, we know who it is. The guy has nothing to do with the Supreme Court. Nothing. And the rules didn't require that you list gifts from personal friends, long-term personal friends, until recently. And he did. So he hasn't done anything wrong. What he did is less significant than what the Democrats did. Almost always the case. But Democrats get away with it.
Today's Democrat Party hates a black conservative. They can't stand anyone in the black community who even dares.
Particularly, I'll tell you, the truth is, Tim, gets a lot of it too. But black women in particular, I mean, that's a real double whammy, because first of all, if a woman isn't a liberal, she's not really a feminist. And if a black woman isn't, doesn't subscribe to their view of race, she's a traitor and maybe not even a woman. I don't know.
Well, Mayor, we're now in soccer time. But before we go, we definitely wanted to hear. We're getting a lot of comments this evening. People want to know your thoughts on the entrance of both former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie and the former Vice President, Mike Pence, and both of their entrants into the 2024 Republican primary and race for the
Do
nomination.
they want to hear my reaction or see it?
Well, we're going to want to hear it and see it. Those that
Well,
are
first-
choosing to watch
First,
on
if you're listening to,
Yeah.
if you're watching me, I'm gonna let you see it.
But well, Mayor,
now,
Now, if you're listening-
now, if you're listening, I answer with a question: why?
literally, why?
I mean, I don't know if they're. I mean, Pence, I guess, gets about 7%. A couple of polls, Christie was at 0. I don't know how you can be at 0.
Well, Mayor, his first words, Chris Christie, it was just on the New York Post. He said Trump is a self-mirror loving hog. The only hog I see is Chris Christie.
He's a what?
He's a hog, a self-loving hog, mirror-loving hog.
Hog like a pig?
The hog like a pig. Has Chris Christie looked in the mirror? I don't think so.
That was a very poor
Yeah.
image to create of a guy who, you know, has trouble sitting in chairs.
He had the audacity to call Trump a hog.
Yeah,
So
I
what
mean,
are
I
your
don't
predictions
intend. I
on
don't
these two?
intend. I don't intend to make fun of his weight, but I mean, you sort of like put your chin out when you say something like that about somebody else. He's a hog.
Yeah, he's a hog.
That's very dignified.
And of course, Mayor. So
You know what? Do you know what his
both of-
approval rating was when he left?
Probably very bad.
16%.
Yeah.
I mean, this great governor of New Jersey who really changed New Jersey. His approval, they basically kicked him out of office.
Remember when he was the front runner for president, or he was the front runner for the next?
I remember when he gave the keynote address at the 2012 convention. It was all about him. He didn't mention Romney until 17 minutes into the speech.
That's right.
Yeah,
This is the 2000.
I gave 2 keynote addresses, and basically they're about the candidate and the issues that candidate's going to face. And I didn't give the speech by saying, "Oh, my name is Rudolph Giuliani, and I was born in Brooklyn, and my family was pretty poor, and I had to work my way up, and I prosecuted many important cases, and you should have seen how difficult those cases were. Oh my goodness, my cases were so hard. Because if I was Christie, I would have to say I became a U.S. attorney, but I had never prosecuted a case because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. And I'm not sure Christie's ever been in a courtroom.
Really?
I didn't even
don't
know he was a
know.
prosecutor. I had no idea.
People don't know that.
He
about
wasn't before he became a U.S. attorney.
Okay.
It wasn't before he became a U.S. attorney. I don't think he was a trial lawyer. And I'm not sure as a U.S. attorney he ever tried a case. So I don't remember exactly what he was touting in 2012, but that was before he had the problem with Bridgegate.
And look, you look at Chris Christie and how he was thought of as a front runner for president, and then he maybe missed that window. Some look at it as him missing a
I
window.
think that's the biggest bunch of bull.
But this is what
He wasn't going to be nominated in 2012. He wasn't going to get nominated in 2012.
I mean,
he was going to be the flavor of the month, like all the people that went down. And Romney was going to get nominated in 2012. Romney would have beaten him in 2012 for the nomination. And if he hadn't acted like a putz, he would have been selected as vice president. But when he did that, the Romney people went crazy. I mean, it was ridiculous. He gets up to give the
speech ahead of Romney,
speech.
warming up for Romney.
Warming up,
That's
for
your job.
For the party.
Yeah.
You're giving the keynote speech for the party, jerk.
He was chomping at the bit to be
My name
the
is
nominee.
Chris Christie, and I come from New Jersey, and I've done a great job as governor. Everyone knows that.
He did such a great job that New Jersey elected a Democrat after he was gone. So yeah, what a great job he did.
Well, I'm telling you, he got a 16% approval rating when he left.
Which is quite something, right, Mayor? Even if you're
that was well after. It wasn't because of Bridgegate.
No,
Bridgegate was over by then, and I do consider Bridgegate unfair. I thought it was an unfair case. I thought it was done. It was headhunting. It was the Democrats taking him out because
it was a coordinated hit.
Yeah, but that wasn't for 2012. That was for 2016.
Yeah, that was way after.
Because before Trump got in the race, it didn't look like any Democrat could beat Hillary. And there were a few polls where Christie ran ahead of her.
Mm.
And I knew, I was a good friend of his. I knew that they were going to go after him because they had to take him out.
That's right, Mayor. And he was fashioning himself in some kind of a Trump-like candidate, right? He doesn't have Trump's background, but right, he kind of came across as he was going to be this tough-talking guy from the Northeast, Republican, who was going to come in there, not take any not take any crap from anybody, and he was going to get the job done. And then, so I'm with you, Mayor. I honestly was looking at Christie ahead of before Trump even announced, right, as someone tough, someone practical. And then Trump came along.
Yeah, I mean, Trump sort of took his space away from him. Well, you want to know about that? I mean, that probably was a poor.
He took some of his space.
I'm trying not to get.
He took some of his space.
It is tough to take Chris's.
He couldn't fill up.
Right.
He couldn't fill up
I
the whole
gotta tell
space.
you though, he is a good third baseman.
Well, if he was really in the
Did you hear that? Whoa.
He's a good third baseman.
Mayor Giuliani is saying.
I got a picture of him. I'll find it for you.
Is
Of him playing third base when I was pitching in Yankee Stadium.
I don't want to see him in a baseball uniform.
No, but you say he's saying that he was a good third baseman.
Yeah, he made some nice plays.
He's claiming that he made some nice plays out there.
Well, I know he's overweight, but he actually is athletic.
I would think he's more of a first baseman, to be honest.
Well, no, I imagine when he was thinner and younger that he was quite a good athlete because he's obviously it constricts his how much he can cover, but he's a good third baseman. He's a good ball player.
I could see that. Well, Mayor, we're well.
He is ridiculously a Dallas Cowboy fan in New Jersey.
I am also a Dallas Cowboy fan.
Okay,
yeah, but you're not the governor of New Jersey.
That's true.
Which has the Giants and Jets to the north and the
Philly.
Eagles to the south.
Who all
everybody
hate the Cowboys.
Actually, you guys would be very surprised. In the tri-state area, there is a lot of Cowboys fans. Trust me.
They're a national team.
Yeah, they're American.
The governor. Imagine being the governor.
You got the two teams that hate Dallas the most: the Giants and the Eagles.
Well, look at this dope De Blasio. He was a Boston fan.
Yeah.
I mean, you're the mayor of the greatest city in the world, and you're a Boston.
And mayor, people will look at where you grew up, right?
Yeah.
Where did the mayor grow up? And what team was there?
The Dodgers.
The Brooklyn Dodgers. And you were a Yankees fan. So
who now are supporting Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence.
That's the crazy.
Who are a group of transvestites dressing up as nuns.
Oh, you saw that
and
coming.
disgracing the Catholic religion and mocking the Catholic religion.
I thought we were in a cartoon.
nobody gives a damn. Nobody gives a damn.
That's
good though. The Yankees beat them 2 out of 3 this weekend.
Yeah.
Right.
That no better way to show them than beat them on the field.
Yeah, the Yankees beat the Catholic hating Dodgers.
That's right. The Catholic haters. Well, Mayor, what's your closing message? A very special night tomorrow.
Catholics. My closing message is: don't hate Catholics or Jews or Christians or Muslims. Or
respect every religion.
Stop hating.
Right.
And stop this attack on religion. Come on, we need God back. We really do. I think one of the, we could spend more time discussing this, but I think one of the reasons we're in the trouble that we're in is the attack on God and morality and that we've had in America. And I think, that is a Marxist goal, big one, both God and morality, because those standards stand in the way of their control over you. So they want an immoral society until they take over. When they take over, then they're going to probably enforce extremely strict rules. When you think about Castro originally imprisoned people with AIDS. I mean, that's the way they deal with these things. And of course, all the people in Hollywood who had, tremendously sympathetic feelings about what happened with AIDS support Castro. But they don't pay attention. I don't think people read, or they don't read what contradicts the propaganda that has affected them. But right now, we are in the midst of a very significant deterioration of our government as a government based on freedom. Look at this headline, just in the pictures of the censorship the censorship machine, I think the rest of it is begins. And this is censorship of Robert Kennedy Jr. and Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, these are not exactly the biggest candidates, but everybody gets censored if they don't like you. Kennedy was censored because of his views on vaccines, and Ramaswamy, believe it or not, was censored because of disfavored opinions on China. Meta wants to defend China. What the hell's that about? The Chinese market. That's what it's about. It's about money. Money is more important than the love of your country. That's what's going on with a lot of this allegiance to China. Well, we have a very, very good podcast that I would like you to pay some attention to this weekend when you have some time. One of them is an excellent discussion with Dr. Maria on really the question that's left, which is, how does the war in Ukraine end? Because, this can't be another war that goes on forever, and our diverting our military budget to pay for them when we're cutting our military budget. You don't think we are, because it goes up 3%, but inflation goes up by more than that. So there's an effective cut in our budget as China is passing us. And we're giving our money to Ukraine. Now, you can have very strong feelings about Ukraine. I do. I hope they kick Putin out. But I can't give up America for Ukraine. And I'm also aware of the fact that not all that money is getting where it should go. So let's keep our eyes on that. So go to rudygiulianics.com, rudygiulianics.com for the podcast. Go to my Twitter account and subscribe, please. It would help me a lot in building what we're doing here into a really substantial network. And on Sunday, on WABCradio.com, Dr. Maria and I will be doing Uncovering the Truth. God bless you. Have a great weekend, and God bless America. Our purpose to bring to bear the principle of common sense and rational discussion to the issues of our day. America was created at a time of great turmoil, tremendous disagreements, anger, hatred. There was a book written in 1776 that guided much of the discipline of thinking that brought to us the discovery of our freedoms, of our God-given freedoms. It was Thomas Paine's Common Sense, written in 1776, one of the first American bestsellers, in which Thomas Paine explained, by rational principles, the reason why these small colonies felt the necessity to separate from the Kingdom of Great Britain and the King of England. He explained their inherent desire for liberty, for freedom, freedom of religion, freedom of speech, the ability to select the people who govern them. And he explained it in ways that were understandable to all the people, not just the elite. Because the desire for freedom is universal. The desire for freedom adheres in the human mind, and it is part of the human soul. This is exactly the time we should consult our history. Look at what we've done in the past and see if we can't use it to help us now. We understand that our founders created the greatest country in the history of the world, the greatest democracy, the freest country, a country that has taken more people out of poverty than any country ever. All of us are so fortunate to be Americans. But a great deal of the reason for America's constant ability to self-improve is because we're able to reason, we're able to talk, we're able to analyze. We are able to apply our God-given common sense.